When your kid's at a lesson and you're working with instructors or even at practice, put your phone away.
Yeah.
It's the natural, spontaneous things that happen in a practice or in a game, in a relationship with coaches and players that mean more than anything.
Welcome to the No Days Off Dad Season podcast. We have a special guest today that my co-host Evan Moore is going to introduce because it hits pretty close to home.
Well, first of all, I mean, it's good to be back here.
Yeah.
It's been like a month, right, since we did our show on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Which we were both crazy wrong about how that game played out.
Yeah.
I got a lot of flack for that on social and all that for being I was supposed to know, apparently. They're like, who's this idiot you're doing a podcast with?
Yeah.
Like, you can't get anything right. And then we talked about youth sports, and some of that will be tied to today. So we're here with Mike Stith today. Mike, first and foremost, is my uncle, which is kind of cool. He's known me my whole life, and I've known him as long as I've been alive. But Mike also brings some awesome perspective that we're going to talk about today. And the reason I say that is because Mike is a legend. Now, he's super humble.
Legends are dead, Evan.
I'm telling you right now, like that term might be overused, and I'm not going to try to use hyperbole here, but Mike is a legend in the softball world, amateur and pro, right? Starting at as young as 12U, all the way through high school and into college. We are sitting next to a legend in his craft. And the reason I like these conversations so much is any of us that aspire, like whether we're young coaches in youth sports, which we are, whether we're young parents, which we are, whether we're, aspiring coaches to do something even greater, whatever industry we're talking about. So we're talking sports today, right? And you might even say, okay, generally, like, or I want to be a football coach. How does this apply to me? There are themes we'll pull from this today, from this conversation with Mike, that will apply to anything you're trying to do in sports and in life. Because the reality is, like, being great in something, there's something to be learned from people in various industries that are good at what they do. Like, I love watching someone that's an expert in their craft. There's something to be learned from anybody, even if it's the guys down the street selling printers at Best Buy. Mm-hmm. There's something to be learned from that guy, right? If they're really good at what they do. Right now on Netflix is Court of Gold. I don't know if you guys have seen it. If you haven't, I highly suggest watching it. It's a documentary that recently came out that chronicles the Summer Games last year, the Olympics in Paris. And it mainly features the USA team because it was like the next dream team in a lot of ways with Steph Curry and LeBron. We all saw what Steph did to win the gold, right? But it also talks about Serbia and Canada because there's a lot of foreign NBA players. And Kevin Durant, who is arguably, most people don't realize this, Kevin Durant is arguably the greatest international Olympian, like, basketball player of all time. 4 gold medals, right? Most of these guys haven't, like, Steph just got his first. So Kevin Durant has been a fixture in USA basketball for, the last 4 Olympics. And they had a quote from Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin's great, right? One of the all-time great scorers. Put the ball in his hands, it's hard to make an argument that anyone's better in NBA history in a lot of ways than Kevin Durant. He was talking about young guys on the team this year, Anthony Edwards, for example. And he was saying that, look, he goes, a lot of guys think that, like, those guys can just learn from me and they should be sponges. He goes, there's a lot of new ways of doing things. I'm in my mid to late 30s. Like, I watch those guys after practice, like how they take care of their body. What have they learned the last 10 years that I haven't learned? Because I haven't been in college and I've been on the pro circuit and I don't want to get caught stuck in my own ways. I thought that was an incredible comment by him. And it just shows that the great ones are always looking to learn, right, from people that are doing things differently and all that. So that's sort of a long way of telling you why we're here today, right? Is like, are we a softball podcast? No. But are we here to talk about ways of doing things with an immense amount of success with a guy like Mike? Yeah. And there's a lot to take from it. So Mike, the resume is almost too long. So Mike's daughters are
That's old age.
Yeah, so Mike's daughters obviously are my cousins, and I spoke with them even before the show, and I said, well, can you tell me this? Can you tell me how many national championships in club softball? Kristen, his oldest daughter, who played at UNR at Reno, was like, no, honestly, I'm actually not sure. I'd have to check with them because we lost count several years ago. So I'm going to run down a few different things. First of all, Mike, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
This is great.
Most importantly.
As anybody, it's like sitting at a bench at a park sometimes.
Yeah.
So, no, I have no problem doing this. It's an honor to be here.
I think this is going to be pretty easy for you too, because you're a ball coach.
Yeah.
And this stuff, you live and breathe this stuff,
Yeah.
right? And this is what you do.
Yeah. I just got to remember not to cuss or anything like that.
Hey,
We had an edit button back
No,
there.
you're fine. I mean,
we got Rod back there on the tools.
We have no FCC regulations here, right? We can say whatever we want, so it's all good. So Mike, going back, several years ago, even coached high school football. Was an offensive line coach at Tustin. Shout out to Sean Foster, Tustin High School. They were in my league in high school too.
Back with Marion. I coached at St. Paul prior to that.
There you go.
I'm a product of St. Paul High School, which kind of plays into almost everything I do today.
Yeah.
So.
And then Mike transitioned to softball. His daughters were softball players, so he transitioned to coaching them in softball. Kind of he did his own club for a while called Tough Enough.
Yeah.
And that was about 7 years.
Yeah.
And
we did.
Mike brought and I can relate to this a little bit too. I'm a former football player that coaches kids soccer, quasi club type stuff. And Mike brought kind of a football level of intensity to younger girls playing softball. Mm-hmm. And for some people, it was kind of an eye-opener. And others, it was like, hey, we could flourish from this, right? Mike consistently got some of the best players in the area to play for his team. And so much so that one of the other sort of powerhouses in the area, which is referred to as Batbusters, OC, Orange County Batbusters, took notice of this and thought, we're going to start plucking his players. So I'm going to give the Cliff's Notes version of this. Otherwise, we'll be here all day talking about Mike's career. But fast forward, and Mike ends up joining forces with OC Batbusters, right, for a while, and eventually breaks off on his own. And he's still with OC Batbusters, runs his own training facility in Anaheim called Sports Training Complex, which is, I've been there a couple times. Huge operation. Girls from all over the country, high school and college, come and train with Mike. I think in a lot of ways, Mike is sort of, he's going to laugh at this, but sort of a gatekeeper to college softball. A lot of coaches, I'm going to tell a story here in a sec, know Mike, trust his opinion. If there's a girl they like, they'll call and say, hey, Mike, what do you think of this girl, right? And it might, she played for me, or I worked with her at some point at my facility, and I recommend her, whatever the case may be, right? So the opinion of Mike in the eyes of all these college coaches and the relationships he has with them is huge. As a head coach in club, 8 national titles. As a head coach at the professional level, 1 national title. As an assistant coach, 6 national titles. This is like Belichick type stuff.
Yeah.
Like Bill Belichick might be the Mike Stith of the NFL. I was going to say it the other way around, but I don't know. How many athletes have been under Mike's coaching and gone on to D1 programs? Far too many to count. You probably don't even know the number. Hundreds.
I don't know.
Hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds.
He's coached 103 players that went on to be All-Americans at the collegiate level. 103. 4 of his players were at the 2020 games in Tokyo, the Olympic Games. Approximately 40 of his athletes over the years have won national championships in college. 40. Okay, and one more thing about why this is relevant to parents and coaches of all ages is Mike, when he's still with Batbusters, coaches the 18U team. In season, it's 18U. Yep. But out of season, he's coaching girls as young as 11 years old, 12U girls, right? I've got a daughter that's 10, about to be 11. He'd be coaching a girl my daughter's age, which these girls are still very much in the developmental age. And so that's why, from our youth sports conversation, that's why I'm so excited to have this. Last thing I'll say, and I know I'm talking a lot, but there's a reason. I was doing a radio show for what used to be the Pac-12 conference on Pac-12 radio about 3 or 4 years ago. Mike Candrea, who's a legend in the softball world, he was the head coach at Arizona from 1986 to 2021. So 36 total seasons as the head coach at Arizona. Premier program. He was so respected at that university, he became the interim athletic director when they fired Dave Hickey a few years ago. Okay, so he became the interim AD in 2024. As of his retirement, now I'm talking about Mike Candrea, the Arizona coach. As of his retirement in 2021, Mike Candrea was the all-time winningest coach in college softball history with 1,674 wins. That's 4th of any coach in any NCAA sport. Okay, so we've established the fact that Mike Candrea knows what he's doing, knows what he's talking about. On the air, we had Mike Candrea during an off-season conversation on Pac-12 radio, because we generally talk football, but then we get into the off-season, we talk all collegiate sports. And we were in the middle of the Women's College World Series. Okay. And so we're talking, everything going on. We had Mike come on. And I mentioned on the air, I said, Mike, just curious, any chance you know my uncle? My uncle's Mike Stith. He stopped, he goes, your uncle's Mike Stith? I said, yeah. He goes, do you have any idea how much of a legend that guy is in this sport? And I said, well, yeah, I do, but it's pretty cool to hear you say it. He's like, that guy, he goes, what he's established at that level with those girls and the credibility he has and what he's built, the program he's built, he goes, it's second to none. So I hope everybody understands who we're talking to today. Yeah. Did I do a good job kind of painting the picture?
That might be the best introduction I've ever heard on a podcast.
You guys, and like anybody, I just have always considered doing my job.
Yeah.
I mean, you just go through, you grind.
Yeah, you don't pay attention to this stuff.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't at all.
Right?
Those are great compliments by somebody who I respect at the highest level. Mike Kendra is the simplicity and how he approached this and the diligence of detail. Obviously played out over the years at Arizona. But this goes down to commitment level, expectation level. And you talked about observing other people. That's how I started in this. Watching good teams and paying attention. My uncle, my dad, my uncle ran a great travel team before I even got going. Paid attention. I watched what they did every minute because I knew my kids. There was only so long I was going to be able to coach high school football with all girls. That was not going to last. And eventually one thing led to another, and here I am.
But Mike, what I think is interesting, you started coaching your daughters.
Yeah.
Right? And Tough Enough, which is Bat Busters is the continuation of the whole thing, but way back in the day, started coaching your daughters at a young age, right? So did you ever set out?
Oh God!
I mean, okay. Let's put it this way, because I coach soccer. He coaches t-ball. I don't know if we're going to be doing this, but what were your intentions when you just started coaching your daughters?
Discipline, teamwork, all the little things you write down on a paper that everybody dreams of. You want your kids to learn. How to be a good teammate, how to work hard to get something you achieve. The demand to have a real high expectation. I mean, oftentimes people talk about, dads yelling at their kids and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of that stuff today. But having high expectations for your kids is not a sin.
Yeah.
How you handle it, and being a quality person, whether you're working at the grocery store or coaching softball, there's a difference between good people and bad people, and you have to have that proper approach to deal with your kids. Yeah. But having a high expectation level is not it's not against the rules.
I think that's really, really cool too. Coaching football, and then you see you have all daughters.
Yeah.
You could have just let them go through sports, having someone else coach them, and we could do that as well. And Ryan and Evan being ahead of me with older children, older girls, sort of, not in a way I wanted to, but showed me the way of coaching youth sports and the passion they have. I mean, their most passionate sport they coach is not the sport they played. It's soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, I played it till I was like in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Right? Would parents that watched you all the way back to Tough Enough, would parents that watched you coach their daughters, let's say we're talking 12, 13, 14-year-old girls, would they say that Mike is an intense coach? Like, how do you think they would describe your coaching style, especially of younger girls that aren't even really in high school yet?
Intense. That's blue collar intensity. It's just like a football. I brought it from the football field.
Yeah.
You grind at things in order to get your point across to a player. You grind it on that point and over and over and over. And I will tell you that age has its many downfalls, but one of the blessings is wisdom. You learn to step back, look at this a little bit differently, and you understand. I've become a much better teacher than a yeller, and I can yell with the best of them. But when you can stand back and use the perspective of trying to get through to that kid, it's a blessing. The time is a blessing.
So let's try to go sort of chronologically here. If there's parents listening that have kids that are young, let's just say 10, 11 years old, right? And are beyond the years of just like, hey, let's just have fun. And it's starting to become where let's try to make them good players, right? And let's try to have them really start to develop. I can tell you from firsthand experience, there's already parents, even at 10 years old, that are concerned that they're not positioning their kid correctly for the next level. And is my kid on the right club team? Should my kid not be playing rec anymore? And again, I think these parents, all good intentions.
Always.
Right? Especially like in the area we live, parents have resources.
Yes. And
sometimes it's painted as a bad thing, as like, oh, these parents need to. No, I think they just care and they're trying to give them a chance. Sometimes they go over the top on it.
Yes.
But what advice would you give some of these parents of really young kids that play a skill-specific sport? Because football is different. Like, I didn't start till high school. Like,
most boys don't.
Speed and power gets you a chance, right?
Yes.
But these sports that require a high level of fundamentals, and parents that are concerned that even at 9, 10 years old that they're not putting their kid in the best position with the best coaching against the best talent. Is there any thoughts you have for parents like that, given that you've done this at the highest level?
Well, I think that we all work hard to be able to afford our kids opportunities, and if that's what you choose to do as a parent, but you have to understand, ultimately, the success or failure of your child is not going to be based on what you do. It's not going to be based on how much money you can provide. Like, the resources are the resources.
Right.
But that individual child is going to develop the mindset and the drive based on you as parents, not how much you pay them.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the old thing: your kids are going to do what you do, not what you say. And how many times you can pull the credit card out and get them into a certain lesson, or that's going to play, but it's not ultimately the deciding factor.
Otherwise, kids from some like underserved communities would never make it to where they are, right? I mean, now talent is an obvious criteria for this whole thing.
Rules,
but the other side of it, right? The drive, the will. I mean, where does that come from, right?
And that comes from the parents, and most of them don't understand that value. They think it's I got to pay to get them on this team, and I got to pay to get them on this team. I wish I could go back and tell all these people, it's the drive you instill in your children, not the lessons through who you're going to go pay to learn how to hit, or who you're going to pay to. It's a big part of it, but the drive you instill in them is what's going to ultimately decide their fate.
And to instill that in them, they're looking at you.
Yeah,
they're looking at how you live your life, how the mom lives their life. You're the role model. I know that with our kids, I mean, they're watching every single thing that we do because they start copying that, and we see it, the good and the bad.
Yep.
I think too, with the sports aspect, something I'm curious about is, all right, you coach your daughters, but then you're also coaching other people, and we coach our daughters. I coach my son and my daughter. How did you treat that though? Because you're coaching them all. Like, did you treat coaching your kids different than you, like, were you hypersensitive when it was your daughters, or was everyone just a player? Because I think I've been on teams where there's like favoritism, or they're harder on their kid. Like, how do you approach that? Like, how would you tell a parent right now, how do you coach your kid? Because I'm sure a lot of them out there,
relative to other kids too.
That's what I'm talking about. Relative to other kids, like, how do you approach that? Because that's probably the hardest thing, is like, how do you handle that?
Yeah.
Nick, I was blessed when I started Tough Enough. I had one of my dad's good friends, Daryl Pratt, was my assistant coach. His granddaughter was my shortstop, and her daughter is now doing lessons with me at 9 years old, believe it or not. But I had people that guided me. I was nuts. I mean, I can tell you stories where I threw all the equipment out onto the street, and cars were slamming on the brakes while their helmets, because the girls left stuff on the floor. That I did all kinds of stuff.
Really? I honestly can't. It's my uncle, and I can't even picture it.
But he's got a lot of wisdom now.
Yeah, I can tell you.
I bet your coaching's been an evolution of who you become.
No question. But you have to. It takes time, because you have to fail.
Yeah.
And so I've learned more from my players than they have learned from me. And people don't understand that. I have had the wisdom of 12 and 13, 14, 15-year-old girls telling me, no, I can't do that. And no, like, I don't know about that. Like, that kind of feedback is what I thrive on as a coach. And if you're a parent who are going to try to dictate the outcome of every one of their missions in life, you're not going to teach that kid how to deal with that coach, or how to deal with pressure, how to deal with the negativity of a loss. I was watching they stream these softball games, and I had one of the kids on my 12U team. She popped up in the infield, and she held her head like, she just ran over the family dog. And I'm thinking, and I told Kate, I go, man, I don't understand that. Well, Dad, they're hard on themselves. I go, no, that's over the top. That's over the top. You want to kick the dirt, okay, I get it. You want to slam the bat on the ground, okay, I get it. But you're going to act like, so the strain and stress that a lot of these parents put these kids on is not necessary.
Yeah.
Teach them how to deal with people. Teach them how to deal with failure. Don't shelter them from it. Let them fall on their face. Yeah. You want to know how many times I saw Evan fall on his face? And he had 4 bumps on his forehead.
Literally,
everybody.
Figuratively.
Trust me, I have a son that's doing the same thing that I hear stories of him. So
and he'll be okay.
He'll be okay. I know that.
He'll be okay.
I get notes from the school, and they're like, hey, he bumped his head, or he has a boo-boo. And I'm like,
he'll be fine.
Listen, based on his uncle's head and my head, he's going to be okay, but I'll make sure he's okay, like, when I take him home.
I think I'm okay. I don't know.
Yeah. That's for other people to decide, I guess. But
in my mind, I am.
We won't ask Colby.
Yeah. but not, these parents try to shelter them. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Let them figure it out.
Let them fail.
Let them fail.
I love that.
Don't go out there. If I had a girl that failed miserably in the national championship game a few years ago, and she came back. She moved here from Oklahoma and came back and started working harder to pitch. You can't shelter people.
Yeah, you probably saw that too, and you're like, she's
100%.
got it, right? That she's willing to do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, this is probably the last two questions we've asked you, where you were talking about the drive and all that, beyond talent, what things that push kids. This is probably a different way of asking the same question, but I'm sure you've coached several kids that were really good players growing up, even through high school, and either didn't want to or weren't good enough to play at a high level in college, right? I'm sure there are countless amount of girls like that. That's the majority, actually.
Wonderful
right?
kids. Yeah.
So I'm curious, and again, there's a lot more arenas in life to learn this than sports, but we're focusing on sports today. What did you notice from going through your coaching style, your program, and just the life of sports in general, the ups and downs, the failures? What sorts of things did you see them take away from those experiences? Even though, because some parents might say, well, I mean, maybe you got a 10-year-old kid, and they're like, I mean, my kid's not going to play college sports. I don't really care if they play sports or not. Like, so they don't really push them to keep going. They're just like, yeah, you want to quit? Cool, sounds good. Like, quit. And by the way, I'm not talking about quitting a sport that they didn't like.
Yeah.
I'm just saying generally, like the hard work and the grit and the grind of sports. I've heard some parents say, yeah, whatever. I mean, my kid ain't going to be like this star in high school or college, so it's whatever. If they want to stop playing, it's fine. My retort to that is, I think what you're going to say is, what sorts of intangible qualities did you see kids pull from that process, even if they knew they were never going to make it to a point where it was going to pay for college or whatever it is, right?
Here again, though, I don't have the statistics to track this, but I'd like to find out. We had several kids that were not Oklahoma or UCLA, Arizona players. They weren't going to play at Florida, but they went to a lesser school and did well. And graduated with college with a certain level of self-confidence because they committed themselves. They committed themselves to something and they achieved it. The number of kids that actually perform in the College World Series is so small.
Yeah.
And
especially with Oklahoma dominating it every year, it doesn't help. It's extra small because of that.
Yeah. But we could do a whole nother podcast on that. But the kids that actually get to that level, it's so small. But do you think for 1 second the girl that played at a mid-major and accomplished, maybe got to be all academic, all conference and got some good pinch hits and had great friendships, probably married her husband from that school, you think her experience is any less than the girl that just won the national championship?
Yeah.
I beg to say no.
She might even be happier.
She got 1,000%.
Possible.
1,000%. So the drive it takes to get these kids to feel that level of accomplishment is not diminished by the level that they're playing. It has to be about, are they happy with what they achieved out of this whole thing?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what we're all going to thrive on, is what they took away from all this stuff.
No, that's the great thing about sports, is it teaches you so much about life.
Yeah.
I look back to, the sports career. You talk about failure. Mountaintop experiences like winning championships and winning games is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
And you that adrenaline rush, that excitement, the relief, all this stuff is awesome. But you learn through the trials, you learn through the failures. What I'm thinking about, my question is, when you're talking about like girls going through failures and struggling and all that pressure on them as your coach, because coaching, in my opinion, and I know Evan's opinion, some of my favorite coaches were my AAU basketball coach growing up, was the one that pushed me super, super hard, but also believed in me more than anyone. And is a big reason why I had success. But like, how do you yourself coach these girls through the failure? Maybe their parents are putting pressure on them to do this, hey, go do that, and you see like that immense amount of pressure they're putting on them. Like, how do you as their coach like handle that to help them like learn how to go through the failure, learn how to go through making a mistake, missing a ground ball, missing a hit? Like, what do you say to them to coach them up?
Before you answer, can I tag that real quick? Because I have a quote. I had the same question in mind. I'm really glad you asked it.
Yeah.
Like, whether we're talking 12U up to 18U, and maybe the answer is different based on age group, how do you push these girls? So the famous quote from John Wooden is, a coach is someone who can give correction without causing resentment, right? And so I think the challenge at any level, whether it's 12U or 18U, how do you push these girls without causing resentment? Because you sound like you push them. So that's kind of my tag on Nick's.
I'm very real. I've been fortunate enough to coach some of the strongest willed young women in America. And the one thing that they know, I will never lie to them. I'm never going to bullshit them. And I think that as a thriving athlete, you develop the confidence and the trust with that coach, knowing that what he tells me, he ain't lying and he's on my side. I've told girls, there's going to be days you're not going to like me. But at the end of the day, I'm always on your side.
What age do you start saying that? Realistically.
Seventh and eighth grade.
Seventh and eighth grade?
Seventh grade is when I think that's when the separation begins.
Seventh grade.
The elite level player decides that this is what we're going to do, and you notice that
Again,
take off.
We're talking softball, but this is sports, right? And I did not know that. Nor I don't know how I would know that because I've been a seventh grader, but I didn't realize that at the time.
Yeah.
So to hear you say it, seventh grade is where sort of mentally they turn that corner as far as their own kind of fortitude and willing to move forward and make things happen. They either have it or they don't. You start to see it around seventh grade.
Well, Evan, I think also today's world society puts a lot more pressures on kids in junior high. I think there's a lot more social things that they have to deal with at that level. And so in order to become good, you're going to have to start making that separation from the sleepovers and the mall trips to weight training and ground balls and doing the different things you do. And by the way, you touched on something a little earlier about specialized sports. And this is going to waver off a little bit from where we were, but this is what you do when you're old, Evan. Your mind starts wandering.
I get it.
But the specialized training is great, but I'm here to tell people, be careful with that.
Okay. Specialized meaning?
Don't spend 7 days a week playing softball or playing basketball or whatever you do. Don't. Especially
you're not talking specialized in a specific sport. You're talking specialized generally on sports, like specific sports. Okay.
The female athlete, and I'll speak pretty much on the female side of things, their bodies are not developing enough physically to specialize. They need to do other things. They need to play soccer. They need to play basketball. Well, what if my pitcher's gonna get hurt? Yeah, that's life. That's life. She could get hit by a car tomorrow. So I mean, I have lost championships. When you watch Florida today, they're on at like 4 o'clock or something like that playing Texas. The catcher on that team is one of the greatest catchers I've ever had. She's one of the most serious people. She grew up in Arizona, blew her knee out her junior year, and I lost her.
Playing softball?
Playing basketball.
Oh, playing a different sport.
Playing basketball. And she is one of the most serious people I've ever coached. She was the Johnny Bench Award winner. She was the catcher. She was the SEC Player of the Year last year, Jossie Erickson. And she came back with such a vengeance and became this incredible person because of the injury. But I go back to playing other sports. I'm a huge advocate for girls flag football.
Yeah.
I think it is the best thing that could happen to girls because of the communication, the aggressiveness, the multiple position, the movement of their bodies. When they're fielding ground balls, a rotational sport, an upper level sport, they're only using one side of their body. I think that there's downsides to this, and as you guys, you're beyond your professional lives. The grind and toll of your body doing the same thing repeatedly over and over and over and over, it wears on you, and it's not meant to be that way.
Some kids, because even varsity sports in high school is a difficult thing to accomplish, right? I mean, I think we took that for granted when we were playing, but then you realize like high school varsity sports is a high level in a lot of ways,
very
right?
high level.
So you're an advocate of playing multiple sports.
Yes.
Are you just saying basically as long as you can competitively?
As long as you can.
So so what percentage of your girls of your stud players, what percentage of them are playing multiple sports in junior high and also high school?
A lot of them in junior high, they don't have time. I have 12-year-olds that play softball 6 days a week.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
And I think that is a real problem. And I think that's a problem that's going to play out.
So you would discourage that?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Yep.
And talking to a guy who's I already went through the numbers. Hundreds of All-Americans, right?
Back when I had Tough Enough, we would practice, the girls always did a hitting day a personal training lesson thing. We had a practice during the week, and then we played on the weekend. So this thing of 6 and 7 days a week, I can't even imagine it. I can't. And these people are so worth a college scholarship or whatever the case may be.
So you're less concerned, because I think most people would assume you're talking about mental burnout.
Yes.
You're also
Physical.
talking about physical burnout.
Physical burnout.
Same thing over and over and over again. Underdeveloped things in the body that aren't for example, at an age like 12 years old where the body's still developing.
Yeah.
You're underdeveloped physically is what you're saying by doing this.
Well, at this rate, with baseball pitchers, they're going to have, urgent cares doing Tommy John surgeries
Left
in the
and
next
right.
10 years. And when 10 years ago it was very rare, but now it happens all the time.
And they're also throwing less innings these days too.
Yeah.
Right. And they're still getting Tommy John left and right. At least
But they're trying to
Major
throw
League
hard. Their
Baseball.
velocity is hard. There's a lot of things out there, and I don't spend a ton of time worrying about the boys. The girls pitch endless innings.
Yeah, they pitch a lot. It's a different game.
It's a little bit more of a natural movement, but it's a different game. But I'm just going back to the general training of a softball athlete.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough to the parents that keep them playing other sports. You don't have to be the varsity point guard. No, but play.
Yeah.
Enjoy other friendships, meet
Yeah.
a different group of people, and have a different movement of your body. Make sure you're training with people that understand the movements of the female athletes, different than the male athlete, and make sure that you're training properly, because physical breakdowns will happen.
No, that's so good. I think too, you were talking about like rotational sports and over-rotate. I mean, being a throwing athlete, I was rotating the same way, and a way to counteract that is to do movements the opposite way.
Yep.
So like everything aligns. You need to strengthen the opposite way. And Evan and I were both, Ryan as well, his older brother, played all sports growing up, and then we were primarily, basketball and football players.
Yeah.
And it helped us on the football field, no doubt. Him playing receiver and tight end, me playing quarterback. There's so many attributes. And then playing baseball growing up, all the different arm angles. That's what people don't realize is you're actually learning a greater skill set that's going to make you better at the sport, and you're having a less chance of physical burnout and mental burnout. Because at the end of basketball season, I was like over basketball, and I was ready to train for football. And then after football season, I was so ready to hit the basketball court. But when I hit the basketball court, there was a very big difference of football players playing basketball because of our physicality.
Yes.
And then when you go to back to the football field, the athletic ability to move on a basketball court and then have the vision of the court that everything's happening really quick helps you on a football field.
No question.
And that's what parents need to realize is, and also a big topic of our youth sports episode was, you got to work hard, discipline, fundamentals, all these things, but you got to find a way to make it fun.
Yes.
Because the best athletes out there have fun while doing those things. And that's how you stay away from burnout.
Yep.
I love hearing him talk about this now, because so often in today's, and again, I'm talking younger kids, so often today I hear, well, it's because I played high school sports 22 years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say that, but it's
It
now,
is crazy,
it's now a long time. It's 2
Makes
decades.
me feel bad.
2 decades, right? Long time ago. And my first offer coming out of high school for football was my junior year was Pete Carroll. And he had just gotten to SC, and they had not really gotten it going yet. But he told me, he said, I want to offer you a scholarship to play football here under one condition. And he also knew, this was kind of tongue-in-cheek because he knew I wanted to play basketball. But he said, I got one condition. He goes, you got to keep playing basketball. And I thought he meant in high school, because I figured he's not going to want me to play college basketball, even though it was a priority for me.
Yeah.
And he goes, no. I'm talking, I want you to play. I've already talked to Henry Bibby. I want you to play basketball at USC. Like that is paramount. Like you got to keep, for at least he identified for this guy, he's got to keep playing basketball for me to get the most out of him on the football field. Right. So what I hear a lot today from parents is it's different. It's different today. I said, the pressure from people telling you that have a vested interest in your daughter playing for them, right? Or the sort of economic value of the game at a young age probably has changed quite a bit, right? The club market and all that's way bigger. I get it. But all this stuff we're talking about is not different, right? So there's sort of this illusion, if you will, that it's different today than it was then, right? But in reality, like a good friend of mine was recently the offensive coordinator at Stanford, and he was recruiting a couple kids in the Newport Beach area, and we had some tight ends at a local high school that none of them played any any other sport.
That
These were all
shocked.
big athletic guys.
When we were out there, that shocked me because these guys would be balling out on the basketball
Yeah,
court.
and I'm like, we got all 6'5", 240 guys that aren't playing basketball or some other sport. And this guy from Stanford, offensive coordinator, he shakes his head. He goes, everyone thinks that also that we've changed. He goes, I'm still looking for just the best all around athlete.
Yes.
And if I find a 6'5" guy that doesn't play basketball, that's an athletic tight end, he goes, it's not a good thing. We're sitting here being like, why doesn't he play basketball? Because if I'm going to recruit him, I would go watch him play basketball to see what kind of athlete he is, right? So he's like, it's not a good thing. So I mean, it's great to hear you in present day say this, because a lot of people feel like today is way different than 20 years ago, and I get in some ways that it is. But
well, the marketplace in college sports is, I think, in the next 5 years we're going to see such a dramatic shift. And I think that the NCAA is in trouble. Actually, if I'm a betting man, I think that
they are.
I think that why would these large conferences continue to give money to the NCAA when they're their own entity? And also the money, even girls in softball now are making substantial money with these opportunities out there, which for me as an old-fashioned person, I'm not a fan of. I think that I just think you need to earn your stripes. I think that there has to be, like, please do something before you get paid. And you guys have former players. I'm sure it gets frustrating when you watch guys. This guy hasn't caught a football.
Yeah.
This guy hasn't gone through, like, he hasn't seen any of this stuff.
So you're referring to NIL money and guys getting
money.
all this money before they even get to a program.
Exactly.
Right?
And girls
in all sports, right?
And girls, it's affecting girls now.
Yeah.
And parents see that at a very young age. Well, we got to do this, and no, you don't got to do anything. What you have to do is love your kids, support them, put them in a position where they're going to thrive, put them around good people, whether they're coaches or whatever. This is a coaching thing, and that, when I walk around all these parks, I see these guys, all macho screaming and yelling and doing shit, and I just kind of laugh, and I pay attention to who's coaching your kid.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing that we were talking before the show, and I had to stop us a few times because it was so good. I was just playing golf yesterday with a former professional athlete, and we were just talking about, he played baseball, and we were just talking about
Gary
football.
Matthews Jr.
Gary
12
Matthews.
years in major leagues.
Amazing. Great golfer. Had a great time, but we were just talking about coaching. And I was like, you know what, early in my career, you always think it's the locker room and the players and we'll make plays. Fans think the same thing. Oh, we signed this player, we're going to be great. Now that I'm removed from the game and I look back, I'd say the biggest thing was quality of coaches. And obviously you got owner, GM, all that stuff, but are your coaches putting you in a position play-wise, and are they teaching you fundamentals? I mean, I look at some of my greatest years, playing with Andy Reid, winning the Super Bowl in Philly those years. We had an aggressive GM that looked at the best athletes. He wanted the best athletes that did multiple sports.
Is this Howie?
Howie. I mean, look at Cooper DeJean, fantastic basketball player. All you see is basketball highlights. GMs look for that. And I think just you had a quote that I want you to share about coaches, because that year, specifically the Super Bowl year and in Philly, was fundamentals and just aggressive coaching to where, like, every day I knew it was getting better. Because I've also been on teams where we just ran plays in practice and we did a couple drills, so we just checked it off the list. We weren't good teams, so.
Oh, you've had bad coaches?
Yeah, I had a few bad coaches.
I could write a book on what not to
do.
do.
I want him to say the quote. I'm just trying to set him up because I didn't want to leave this down there. I want to bring it up here.
Yep.
Well, I was sitting with a famous softball coach, and at the point I asked her, because I would sit and watch as a know-it-all younger guy. I'm sitting up in the stands and I'm watching some of the things that happen, and I asked her, I said, how many coaches know how to coach? And she said, less than 5%. And
at all levels.
At all levels, at any sport. At all levels in any sport. And so when you put that into perspective, all these kids that are going into playing all these different things, there shouldn't be a class or qualification to be a good person and to do the right thing. And when you watch people, you should, as a parent, be able to depict the people that are doing things for the right reason.
Yeah.
And don't listen to if they yell or if they cuss. Watch their character over a long period of time. Watch what people do. And good coaches walk the walk. And that's the thing I've always looked forward to. I'll never make my players do anything I wouldn't do. And when you get older at it, the length of time being able to observe that. So no matter whether you're playing in the NFL or whether you're playing softball,
Yeah.
only a few people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like, why do the same people win?
Yeah. So I was just going to say, I think this translates to management. We're talking about professional sports and even college with athletic directors. This is why we have dynasties.
Yes.
Right. It's why Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, and these guys, like, it's why there's room for them to exist in the space they exist in. And some of it is not always the coach's fault. Some of it's management. You're not patient enough to allow a guy to flourish and develop, right? But the reality is like there's a very small percentage of those in every profession that really know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And that's what leaves room for dominance and dynasties. It's what allows you to have the numbers I rattled off at the beginning of this show. It's what allows Bill Belichick to have 7 rings or whatever it is, or 8 as you include as an assistant coach, right?
Some of those kids that have played in those, and Oklahoma's roster today, there's kids on Oklahoma's roster that played for me since they were 9 years old. They played for us all the way through elementary, junior high.
Oklahoma's won 4 straight national titles, for those of you that don't watch college softball. 4 straight national titles, and that's what he's referring to right now.
It's unheard of, and we've had at least 7 players there each of the last 4 years. We had, 5 kids, 5 of the girls do something that's never happened. They won 4 national championships. And all those people are, not only are they good players, obviously they are who they are, but they're whole inside. And I've used this term, and I'll tell
WHOLE, whole. They're whole inside, right?
Yes. Whether spiritually, mentally, they are a complete person. And so you could take away softball from them today and they'd be fine.
Oh, that's
they'd
interesting.
move on, be great kids, because they prepared in multiple sports. I can tell you Tiara Jennings played volleyball at St. Anthony's. She was a volleyball player as well as, and she stopped playing, I think, her senior year. And that commitment level from the time she was very young was evident. I can tell you, Jocelyn Allo used to fly from Hawaii here, and the 3rd week of May every year, her dad would have her at my batting cage at 10 o'clock that first Monday, hitting balls into the net. That diligence and that grind is what really made these people elite. But going back to the kids that won in Oklahoma, winning is great. Winning twice is really hard, but continue that level of preparation and that level of commitment from your athletes to win 4 times is absolute character.
That's a wooden quote too, by the way.
It's beyond being good.
Yeah.
It's a different level of character and soul. And so these are the things that I'm the most proud of. Having the kids play at Oklahoma and winning. I had some great kids. We've had kids that have done great all over the place. And so I don't want to just make this about them, but their commitment to being good and the people that put them in that place are their parents. But their parents were able to, after dealing with me, they were able to let them go.
Okay.
Michael, take it from here.
On that note, so the 5% thing. I have a follow-up here because I think anyone listening would wonder this. If I'm a parent of a young athlete, female or male, and I hear you say that rule of thumb, 5% actually know what they're doing, what does that mean to me as a parent? Do I just assume that everyone coaching my kids doesn't know what they're doing? Do I have to keep an eye out and find the right coach? How do I process that as a parent? If generally 95% of coaches are probably pretty lost and don't know what they're doing, what does that mean to me?
I think you have to put into perspective, or basically, where are we right now? Let's say your daughter's 12. What's our goal here? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to get out of this? And at what level do I want responsibility from my coaches as far as how good they can be? Are we just entering into this? Is this a good introductory level? Where do I want my kid to get long term? If you want to be in this, people jump travel teams. They move around all the time. I'm sure, and boys and girls, it's all the same. Nobody puts enough time into actually talking to the coach. Like, what do you do? I've been married to the same person for over 40 years. What I do is pretty much the same. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be at STC today, vacuuming at 3 o'clock today. I do the same thing over and over again. The commitment level is locked down. And there's a lot of people like that. But there's a lot of people that are not. And as you're putting your kids into youth sports and you're looking, do some background on these people. Look at, I mean, everybody's exposed now on the internet. You can find out whatever you want on these coaches, but find out what they did long term. What's their track record? Who have they done what with? And what have they brought to those kids as they've gone through this? And most people don't do their homework. Yeah. They want to go for the flashy uniform or the guy with the, all the big one-liners out at the third base box, and that's the guy, we want to be on that team. Yeah. That stuff don't work for long term.
That's not the foundation of it. I think you want to see too the ones that actually care about your kids.
Oh,
I think that's the thing, to keep it simple for the parents. Like, do they care about what the team does for them, or do they care about what they can do for your kids and help your kids and honestly build relationships with your kids? And also, as coaches have to always want to learn, and they always need to grow. I think the worst thing that can happen is you're with a coach that knows everything, because that's impossible.
It's impossible.
You never know everything. There should always be a hunger to grow and learn, and you don't have all the answers, but you're going to find a way to get the answers, but you're always going to give the most to your players. And the same thing as a player. As a player, you've never arrived. You should always be hungry to grow, to learn, to excel. If you ever think that you're the best and you've arrived, now you can have the confidence.
Humility's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Find you.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm going to come back to the failure question, because I do not. I want to know this answer. When your players are going through tough times and failures, the parents can do what they do, but kids don't listen to their parents. No. Like, my dad has a ton of wisdom.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to him as a kid, even though he was right most of the time. I listened to my coaches. Right or wrong, I would listen to my coaches more so. So you have a lot of influence over players. How do you pick up the players when they're down?
Well, I'll touch on something first, Nick. I didn't know you until you married my niece, and I'd be willing to bet you can say you didn't listen to your dad, but you paid attention to what he did and how he carried himself.
His work ethic and everything.
Exactly. So
you've referenced that many times.
There's noise,
yes.
and you don't want to listen to the noise because it's truthful and truth hurts. And so you're going to go to the coach, and the coach is going to deal with, they're going to pat you on the back. It's okay. Well, when we first talked about this, I said, Nick, I'm going to give you some opinions that are not real popular now. I don't believe in that's okay. You'll never hear me say that's okay. I think that's all bullshit. I think that you should have expectations for your children, no different than you have of yourself. And I think that you need to caringly push them. Yeah. Know when to shut up. Yeah. Don't bring it in the car, for God's sake. Don't bring it in that trap of that little area in the front of your car. Let them be a kid. But understand that there's nothing wrong with having an expectation level of how we're going to prepare. Yeah. It doesn't mean they need to get a hit every time. It doesn't need to mean they need to score a goal every time. It doesn't mean any of that. But when we're here, we're going to put the time in. Yeah. We're going to do this well, and we're going to feel good about what we do when we leave, and then it's done. And we're going to do that because you go back to the fun thing. If it's a fun task, no matter how hard it is, they'll be back for more. They'll come back for more. But if you make it miserable, it's the parents that take away the fun. I'm telling you, the losing, people can handle. The girls can handle losing, and I'm just dealing with the girls. The girls can handle a loss, but when they get into the cars, they drive home. They don't want to hear about the loss. They don't want to hear about it. It's done, and let's carry on. Yeah. I've always said I'm the bad guy. I'll take care of that stuff on the field.
On that note, just as a quick one, because I got another follow up because we don't have a ton of time left, and we could talk about this stuff for 6 hours without a problem. Yeah. I know one question parents have is that their kid, let's say your kid's 10 or 11 years old, which is right around the time I probably stopped playing soccer. Just an example, right? Yeah. The reality is, like, if you play 3 to 4 sports as a young kid, you're not going to play all those all the way through high school, right? You want to be multiple sports, but 3-4 sports is almost impossible, no matter what era we're talking about. And say a kid's having a negative experience, right, on a team where the coach is fine, but they just lose all their games. They're getting pounded. They're in a league they shouldn't be in. And the kid's ready to move on, right? Is there a right time to let your kid stop playing a sport as far as learning a lesson from it, right? After a bad season, they go, Mom, I don't want to play soccer anymore. Okay, and you know why they don't, because it was miserable, and you're like, you're not going to play high school soccer anyways, but is there a time or a best time to allow a kid to quit a sport?
Your kid will know. We're not quitting in the middle of the season. Yeah. We're going to carry out the season. And so high school softball is much different than say, high school baseball, high school football. Those are high school football and high school baseball are kind of a pinnacle. I mean, you have pro scouts at baseball games. They do this, the Boris Classic down at Jay Sarah's coming up, and there'll be 50 guys there with radars watching every pitch. They don't do that at softball, and it's what I encourage the girls to do in that type of situation where you're on a team that's not very good. It will make you a better person by making that 10th, 11th, and 12th player that's no good on your team a little bit better. That'll make you a better person. At the end of the year, you're not going to remember your team was 2-11. You're going to remember that girl got better.
Yeah.
That girl got better because all I tried to do was help her. And there's no better way for a kid to become a better player than try to illustrate to another player what they need to do.
Yeah.
It will make them a better person. So we can talk about when to quit. At the end of the season, then we can shut it down.
Yeah.
But
Right
I guess you have to put value in. Is there value in dealing with the other people, and then is it taking too much time away from what eventually you're going to do long term?
Yeah.
Yeah, but always have something else to do. I think it's tough too when you quit something. Like, I stopped playing baseball, which was probably my best sport at the time in middle school. But I had basketball, football, and then karate, and then karate was the next thing to go. But then I always had basketball and football. I was more just dwindling it down to focus on multiple things, but I couldn't do 4 things. I wanted to go, once I entered high school, it was 2. And I think that's a big thing. And just talking about coaching, I think too, when you have a coach that genuinely cares about their players, and we all know that, we feel that. And then there's that tough discipline, that correction, that is really hard sometimes. Like you feel it, maybe sometimes you take it home, you're a little pouty. In NFL, we get coached hard. But then you go out to practice the next day and you execute what you were just coached on, that you made a mistake the day before, and you go over to your coach and he slaps you a 5. He's like, that's what I'm talking about. That feels so good, so rewarding. You had to go through the mixed emotions of like, man, I made a mistake. Oh, I got disciplined coach, but it was from a coach that I know cares for me. I dealt with it, I learned from it, and then I went out there and executed. That's how you grow. That's how you get better. That's the best thing. That's what great coaches do. That's what great players do. And for anyone out there that sees their kid on the ground struggling, you just hope that there's a coach there doing that, because they're going to become pretty great players. And if they don't make it to college, and maybe they don't even make it to high school, I promise you they're learning something about life. Like, we're sitting here as former NFL players, dads, legendary coach. I do have a story I want to put in here, because I'd be sad if I didn't.
Nick, on the bat buses, we call that the spit test.
Yeah.
You got to pass the spit test.
Yeah.
And what the spit test is, when I'm like under the bill of your cap, screaming at you, and the spit is like hitting you in the face.
Can you handle it?
Can you handle it?
Yeah.
You do that to 12U as well, or is that?
It's happened.
Man, hey, but that's the O-line coaching him coming out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Those are the great O-line coaches, like Jeff Stoutland in Philly. Like, he can get heated, but man.
What's the story? Tell the story, because I got to follow up too.
Yeah. All right. So, obviously, marry your niece, Tori, and know your amazing softball coach, but didn't get to be. You're a busy man, and I was all over playing. But I wrote a book after the Super Bowl called Believe It, and I was on a book tour. And a gentleman from Tyndale Publishing, Todd Starwitz, we're on the book tour, and you're 7 days with him. He has a daughter playing softball. I'm like, oh, Tori has an uncle that coaches softball, and he's really a great coach. I don't know a ton about softball. And he's like, oh, what's his name? Mike Stith. He dropped what was in his hands, looked at me, goes,
Told you.
No, he's not. I go, yeah. Mike Stith. Dude, he's like the greatest softball. No, it was like all the compliments Evan said.
You're not allowed to disagree.
Yeah,
with what
no,
he
you're
said.
not, because this was a true story where I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
like, this is impressive.
These anecdotes are what
even
really
to this
drives it
day.
home.
You guys, and you guys have dealt with this stuff. It's some like, I don't want to. I mean, like I don't
care
buy
about it.
I don't care, and I don't mean that like negatively.
I totally know.
No.
like I
If you
appreciate
cared
the
about
guy.
it,
No,
if
it
you
would-
cared about it, it'd be about you, and you
It's
wouldn't.
not
you
about
would-
me.
You,
So,
you
but,
wouldn't be doing this.
But the thing I'll say about this, and it's not even your coaching, right? Coaching, whatever. The statistics show that you've impacted a lot of women's life in a positive way.
And that's a good feeling.
Like, take the stats away. A great coach impacts who they're coaching in a positive way apart from the statistics.
Yep.
And then later in life, when their name is said, you're like, if someone says a name to me, I'm not thinking like, what down and distance or what play or what the score of the game was. I'm thinking, did I enjoy being around that person? Did that person make me a better person and impact me? It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So I would say for a guy, and we were in New York City at the time he lived in Chicago, by the way. For him to like drop drop what he was doing and his daughter was younger, and he coached softball himself.
And by the way, Bat Busters has chapters all around the country, right? So that's why that brand
to me,
is...
and I've shared that story with you before, but that was really, really cool because he wasn't saying like national championships, this players here. He's like, oh, he is a great coach first and foremost. So I think that's awesome, and for everyone, I know that's what we try to do with coaching youth sports, and we've talked about is I want to teach the kids the game. I want to teach them to go through adversity. I want to make the game fun, but I want them to grow. I want them to enjoy it. Like with our kids, like I challenged Duke, I challenged Lily, but I like even sprints after practice when I would be able to go to Lily's soccer practice. I'd be like, hey, let's just run across the field back. Let's try to get under 23 seconds. Like I make it a game, but she doesn't know I'm actually teaching her how to run sprints. Yeah. I made it a game, and she learns to work hard, and she does it with a smile on her face. So coaches have so much power. So I know you have a question, and then
on that note, and to kind of cap this thing off, and I know this is not about you. It's never been about you. You're just doing what you love and helping to grow girls, and you get a lot of fulfillment out of it, right? But on that note, one thing I think we should note, because Mike, going back to the very beginning of this conversation, Mike started coaching his daughters.
Yep.
His oldest daughter, Kristen, played at Reno, collegiate softball at Reno. And then Katie followed her up and played at Reno as well. Katie's second in line of his 4 daughters. And now Katie is the head softball coach at J. Sarah, which is a prominent private Catholic high school here in Southern California. They're in the Trinity League.
Yes.
They're in the gauntlet of the Trinity League for football, where they're playing, modern day Servite, Bosco. J. Sarah's become a thing, and his daughter's now the coach. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. And I want to focus on you, the coach, for a second, because I think that what I just mentioned about the girls is part of it. Obviously, we've hit on a lot of things that players can take from your program and through youth sports and all this. But if you were to right now look back at your road, all the way back to Tough Enough after coaching high school football, I think a lot of us would be interested to know what are your best memories and your best takeaways from doing this for so long. What are the things that stand out the most? I suspect it's not the national championships.
No.
So what are the things that you took away from this? Because I think any parent listening, and any parent/coach or just coach that's listening, is going to really enjoy what you have to say here about your best takeaways and best memories from doing this.
I think that the traveling and the being with your kids, I mean, there's nothing better than watching kids grow up. But it's the sense of training people from a young age to see them overcome what people tell them they can't do. And that can be kind of corny, people talk about that stuff. But training athletes to become elite level players, the best time for the year for me is watching the College World Series. I've had upwards of 18, 17, 16. Every year I have more than a dozen kids playing at the College World Series from various schools. And that to me is amazing. And you talk about, is there one thing? No, because it all just meshes together into the purpose of life. What are we doing? What are we going to do with this? We're just going to grind away and keep hoping that grinding pays off on the field. But also, you got to lead by example, Evan. I do what I do because I think it's important to people see that people walk the walk.
Yeah.
People can preach or talk or do whatever they're going to do. It's the people that walk the walk that end up having the greatest influence.
So it's empowering these young women. You've seen them, a lot of times you've seen them since they were 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah.
And watching them develop the initiative, develop the confidence to go on and not only do great things on the diamond, but also step out and do things, even like we talked about earlier, that go far beyond sports.
Yes.
And watching that development is probably the most, it's like you're a parent of all these kids, right? It's the most fulfilling thing.
There's a piece of it. Yeah. No question. Yeah.
No, it's amazing. Well, I appreciate it, Mike. I know this was a fun conversation. I have a feeling this will be
Nick, I would venture to say that, he referenced all the girls that are like for example, like the March Madness is about to start.
Yeah.
If you think about the Final Four,
Yeah.
I played AAU basketball. You did. There's no one AAU coach that's going to be like, 16 of these kids all played for me.
Yeah.
No, I'm just driving home the point that like there might be no other collegiate sport that is that concentrated with so much influence at a young age, right? So
and you get to hear it from himself. Like, it's not about that. It's about, his greatest joy is watching them succeed. It's not about him succeeding.
Yeah.
It's about watching them. So
if it were about him, he would have burned out a long time ago. And
and he's still going strong.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
No,
Right? Yeah.
that's awesome. And you're still going strong, and
Yep.
I think that's amazing. And you get to impact a lot more people's lives. And we thank you for having you on the podcast.
Yep.
And I do get to end with a quote. Ironically, when I was looking at notes, I had picked the John Wooden quote. I didn't
No
see
way.
it. I didn't
There
see
you go.
No, but I found another one.
Mm-hmm.
Found another one. So I really like this quote. I like what John Wooden always has to say. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm positive that a doer makes mistakes.
Oh,
Put that on the wall.
Some of the richest people in the world have been bankrupt. So,
Yeah.
and it's because of that. I tell people all the time, some of the best hitters strike out the most. So,
Yeah. Well, especially in today's game.
100%. Yeah.
But then they pound a home run.
It's either homers or that's it.
Short-term memory. Next up, it's like golf yesterday.
Exactly.
One of the guys was like, "Oh man," because we weren't hitting every shot perfectly.
No.
Oh man, and he'd say something like, "Man, I've already forgotten about that shot. I'm gonna find a way to get it back on the fairway and get it to the green." It's next shot mentality. Shot mentality.
Yeah.
The kid that I had commented on earlier about to put her head over her head because she popped up in a game in March. That doesn't mean anything. And I will see her probably this afternoon, and I'm going to ask her. I says, "Do you understand that how hard this is?
Yeah.
Like, do you understand how a big term on my team is being good is hard, and they don't understand what really that means. You guys can appreciate that being good is very hard.
Yeah.
Winning is
in
so
many
hard.
ways." And the preparation, being successful, and the responsibilities to your teammates that come with being good. It's very hard. And you popping up in March, nobody cares.
Yeah.
I use harsh terms. I'll tell the girls, nobody cares that you think right now. Nobody cares that you got out, and nobody cares that you feel bad. Nobody cares.
Only you do.
Move on.
Yeah.
Move on. Go play the next play.
That's it.
Because you'll screw up. If you keep acting like that, you're going to screw up again.
Don't let the previous play
No, move
affect you negatively in
It's
the
the
next
Michael
one.
Jordan commercial, right? I miss over and over and over again.
Don't be afraid.
And that is why I succeed, right?
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
In life and in sports, if you get anything out of this, do not be afraid to fail. When you fail, learn from it and you grow stronger and you actually become a better player and a better coach.
Yep.
But if you can't handle that, you'll never succeed.
That was your Super Bowl mantra after you won.
It's my life mantra. I think about, I'm running long distance right now. I'm not a long distance runner. And every day I'm like, God, I'm not going very fast, but I'm doing it. I say, like, for me, like, my mindset is just like stack a brick each day. Do something. Just stack a brick. And then eventually you build that house. And someday you might remodel that house and do something else. But you just stack that brick.
And I got one thing when we finish. And this is for parents that take their kids to many lessons and do all these different things. When your kid's at a lesson and you're working with instructors or even at practice, put your phone away.
Yeah.
Watch the interaction and the eye contact with your coaches and your kids. Watch how your kids respond. And you'll be surprised at what you see because you're going to see the inner drive in that kid. People get so outraged because their kid strikes out. Don't look at that. Watch the interaction. But when you're looking at Instagram on your damn phone instead of paying attention to practice, you're going to miss a lot of good things that happen. And it's the natural, spontaneous things that happen in a practice or in a game, in a relationship with coaches and players that mean more than anything.
The other thing too, Mike, I know we got to wrap this up, but this is
I actually wrapped it up 5 minutes ago.
I know.
I just
We're
this
about
is great.
to wrap it up.
That's
but this
actually
is- this
real.
is
That was so
important.
good.
Because we talked about his dominance. I'm sure you've had times where you've been on the other side of it, and
Yeah.
you've gotten
Yep.
just roasted,
Yeah.
just destroyed,
Yep.
right? Maybe a rough season altogether where your team wasn't as strong as it's ever
Yeah.
been. The lessons that came from that were probably
100%.
immeasurable, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you've dominated. You got all these national titles and All-Americans, but you've probably had times you're like, we're getting our butts kicked right
We
now.
weren't good enough.
Yeah.
We weren't good enough, and
Yeah.
it's forced us to do some different things.
Yeah.
But it's that discipline. Through your years, you figured out the discipline. Like today, you're going to be there at 3 p.m.
Yep.
And you said you're going to be vacuuming.
Oh, yeah.
And like, but just
That's
like
awesome.
those little tasks, like you know, like any great football coach knows, You build a rhythm, you build a routine. You trust it. You probably do micro changes as you've built it.
100%.
But you trust it and you stick to it. Same thing when we played sports. Like, you get pummeled, but you knew what you're going to come back to Monday, Tuesday. You were just going to keep working. You were going to go through the corrections.
And you knew the adjustments that needed to be made.
And it's amazing 2 days after a game. But yeah, so I had a coach, my quarterback coach in college. There's a lot of stories. Amazing quarterback coach. Love him. He had the 24-hour rule.
Yeah.
Win or lose a game.
Yeah.
Deal with the emotion in 24 hours and flush it.
Yeah.
Move on with your life.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just talking about losing.
Yeah.
We had some epic wins. He's like, you better get over that because it does not help you next week. I think that's the biggest thing, too, is like enjoy it for 24 hours, but move on after that.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
All right, we'll do a part 2 at some point. This is too good. Well, thanks for coming on, Mike.
My pleasure.
Appreciate the wisdom, and
My
I learned a
pleasure.
lot.